All right, we're back for the morning check-in, and what an interesting day to say the least. As always, looking forward to connecting and finding out what you guys are keeping your eyes on these days. And I want to talk a little bit about keeping our eye on the target, and that target happens to be the ever-increasing price appreciation in fiat terms in relation to gold and silver at this current moment. And once again, seems like week by week, new all-time high in gold and silver is steadily climbing the charts. Now at $34, just cooled off slightly, but once again, we're into the 30s, low 30s. But nevertheless, that's a monumental accomplishment given the price suppression over the last decade plus, especially that I've been talking about it on the channel here. So want to share my 2 cents on that, as well as point to a particular analyst slash economist that gives 2 or 3 key reasons as to why we're going to see even much higher numbers in the coming weeks, days ahead, and has everything to do with debt and the unraveling of the fiat Ponzi scheme that's underway right now. So, going to share my thoughts on that. I have maybe 6, 7, 8 tabs open, all relevant towards monetary issues, because I just think it's important to keep our eyes on the target, from a financial, monetary standpoint, in reference to what all the distractions that are underway right now and what's coming is all designed to hide. And so we will talk about that and a lot of other things. But as always, for those who might be watching for the first time, you never know, hit that thumbs up button, drop a comment down below, and let me know what your thoughts are, what you're keeping your eyes on. And also anything that I say or didn't say that I should say, definitely give me some feedback. Definitely would love to find out how I can improve and how I can, just of course, continue to learn. So it's all about the community, and that's what these videos are designed to do. So let's keep it going, man. Going to be a good morning to say the least. Hope everyone's day is off to a good start. And let's get into some action, man. So, as always, want to talk about just some opportunities, some strategies, and things I've really been focused on more so on my end here. Kind of dial back from the actual day-to-day videos just so I can focus on strategies and helping people with the opportunities, whether it be the silver team or the gold notes. And so, just trying to actually, put weight in people's hands. So that's the focal point at this moment. So, hopefully, you guys are taking advantage of the opportunities as they come your way. And once again, as we get through this restructuring of our monetary system, it will bring a lot of opportunities because people will be looking for solutions to their problems. And so hopefully you guys are positioning yourselves to be a solution to a problem out there. That's a way to stay relevant as well as be needed and to continue to sustain yourself in this current environment we're in. So let me get my screen here going and we're going to jump into it. All right. So for those who might be new, I never know, I got to always give a shout out for my people, colonialsmetalsgroup.com. And so as always, I appreciate the opportunity to partner with people who help people take action. And so you have the chance of getting a self-directed IRA, basically taking matters into your own hands, getting physical gold and silver, and utilizing a tool that is designed to help people in these uncertain times, especially we're witnessing fiat currency crumble due to the bond market unraveling and things of that nature. So if you're interested in finding out more, if you fill out this form here, you'll get a gold pamphlet. And then also you have an opportunity to contact the experts to get your thoughts and ideas and suggestions on this particular vehicle here. So if you are interested, information is in the description. It's colonialmetalsgroup.com/RTD. And just tell them Mike sent you, and they'll definitely take care of you. So consider that if you have not already. And then also, really looking forward to working with people continuously on the silver team. So if you signed up, hoorah, I'm sure you're beyond excited that you've been able to accumulate incrementally over time. And so this is for people who either are new to the silver stacking game or vets that just want to automate things. So if you're interested, feel free to click the link in the description, mysilverteam.com, and you can be one of the many people here that's a part of the program that have been accumulating incrementally over time. And so as you can see here, these aren't the people who are typically known to be monetary, financially savvy individuals. These are people who recognize there's a problem and they're taking action one round at a time. So definitely take advantage of that. And also, for those who are monetary enthusiasts and love a variety of coins, at the Silver Team store, as you can see here, there's opportunities to get some older sovereign coins from around the world. So as you can see here, the genuine 1933-36 New Zealand King George 6 pence coin is available as well. So these are limited edition. So more so first come, first serve. Then you have the Mexican silver peso from 57 and 67. This silver as well. I think they're about 90%. And then you have the Australian King George 1938 to 1945 that's available. And those are in the Silver Team store. And so the link's in the description for those who want to take advantage of that. And also, if you're interested in wanting to participate and you would like to have access to your own store to share with your family and friends, then definitely that's a part of the Silver Team. So consider joining, and I would love to work with you there. So, yeah, good opportunities there. And I always have to continue to remind people of opportunities when it comes to fractional or gold notes. And so a lot of people, if you are a seasoned veteran, more than likely you have been wise and was able to purchase gold a while back when it was more affordable. But as we move forward, and especially with these all-time highs, the average person can't go out and just drop, 3,000 on an ounce. And so they need alternatives. And so this is just meant to be an alternative, not the primary. And so if you're interested, taking advantage of these fractional notes here, as you can see here, from the time I first mentioned this, the price has gone up. Therefore, the value of these notes have appreciated. So once again, just alternatives for those who want to diversify and have a variety of mediums to preserve their wealth. So it is not the all and be all. It's just an alternative. That's all, people. But once again, buygoldnotes.com. Links in the description. Check that out if you guys are interested. So just a little something there for my people who want some alternatives. Okay. As always, looking forward to getting into this news, man. All right, let me get these stories up here. Before I do that, I want to give you some good news. The good news of the day comes from the good word. So let me get on the screen here so you can see what I see. October 29th, it says the mustard seed faith. And then it goes on to say, Jesus said, quote, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. Matthew 13, 31, 32 says, small, almost unnoticeable, but when planted, it grows into the largest of garden plants, so big even birds perch in its branches. It says, think about that for a second. Jesus isn't talking about the kingdom starting big. He's teaching us that it starts small, tiny, like a mustard seed, maybe even with just a spark of the faith or a small act of kindness. But it doesn't stay small. When we sow that small faith, God grows it beyond our wildest expectations. In a world that values size and success, the kingdom starts quietly in the hearts of those who trust and follow him, growing until it changes everything. So, despite small beginnings, the kingdom of God is advancing one seed of faith at a time, and it starts within you. So, let that seed grow and watch what God will do in your life. Amen and amen. All right. So let's get into it. Price action, keeping your eye on a target. There's a mass exodus right now out of U.S. liabilities. And I say liabilities because I've been saying it for quite some time now. But anything that is not anchored down and offers to people a way to preserve and to store value long term ultimately is a liability because there's nothing underlying it that is worth, I guess, the heartache and effort, the heartache and the risk that falls on the holder of that instrument. And even in investing in treasuries, okay, to park funds aside, institutions have to do it. Pension funds, 401k, all those, those government sanctioned entities, they have to buy it. But the average Joe who recognize that those are just mediums that have been weaponized because the currency that comes from those things are the underlying problems in and of themselves. They carry a different level of prestige these days. And I'm going to share with you 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗢𝗪, who is a commentator, economist, who's, he's apolitical. He's everywhere nowadays, but he's just sharing his insights and some key drivers into why we're seeing this price action at the rate that we're seeing it. So that's what I want to touch on real quick. And let me get into it. But before I do that, let me just look at some price action real quick here. Once my screen refreshes. And so, as always, the money manipulators had to come in and do what they do best, which is to manipulate. And so as of right now, we're looking at silver is 34.18. It got up to 34.57-ish and some change. And then gold got up to 2,772 or some change. And so all-time high territory. And 10-year approaching 11, 12-year high for silver. And so once again, the upward trajectory will continue because the fiat confidence is trending downward. And so I love to just look at these graphs because to me, this is the bigger target worth keeping an eye on. We're going to see so much noise, so much nonsense in the days ahead, especially as a result of this election. But ultimately, price tells it all. So as we can see here, this is just the last year. Since last year at the same time ish in silver, from it being $24 to $34, that's something worth paying attention to. You can't ignore that. Of course, the mainstream media can, because why? Larry Fink's out here talking about Bitcoin and BlackRock buying 3, 4, 500 Bitcoin per day. Yeah, okay. And let me see here. So of course, gold, the global monetary medium that has been reinstated as a standard. Clearly, it went from, let me see here, we had 1985-ish around the same time last year, all the way to 27 today. So once again, the fiat price appreciation is enough to take notice, where it's worth keeping your eye on a target there, buddies. Okay, but it doesn't stop there, because I want to get into why that is, according to some valid sources, even from the mainstream standpoint. But I actually did a video earlier about just the bond route and how it is no longer a safe asset. And then of course I come across this article here. I'm like, wow, okay, clearly that factors into why there's an international movement or exodus away from U.S. liabilities, because they need some type of reassurance that they're not going to lose it all in the days ahead. Real quick. Treasury bonds are losing their status as safe haven assets, says 𝗦𝗢𝗖𝗜𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪 says. And so just to sum it up, give you some nuts and bolts here, because it's a long story, but clearly from all the activity we can see, the Treasury market seems to be losing its appeal as a safe haven asset. Despite turmoil in the Middle East, yields have climbed as traders continue to dump bonds. Assets that aren't usually deemed as risk-free, such as Bitcoin and equities, are becoming the new safe haven. So he even threw in the Bitcoin side of things. And so with the current, let me see here. We had our U.S. Treasuries right now over the last couple of days, just keep an eye on them things. Them things, literally, the amount of, the premium that nations want in order to hold those things continue to climb. Hence the idea of yield needing to go higher. And as of right now, let me see. Let me look. Let me grab it real quick. I didn't look today, but as we're witnessing, even short term, long term, everything is going up. And that just leads me to wonder, how high can it go? And I remember, talking with 𝗙𝗍𝗄, when was it? Throughout, forever, basically saying that at the rate of debt the U.S. needs to issue and the lack of willing participants out there, in order to entice people to even really want to consider investing fully back into U.S. Treasuries the way that they used to, they're going to have to come out of at least damn near double-digit yields on those Treasuries, just because who really wants to hold on to something where you're going to get shortchanged and lose out in the long run? So let me just look real quick. We got the 10-year Treasury. Let me grab this on the screen here, and then we'll keep it moving. But as of right now, it has been climbing incrementally. Take us, cooling off some, climbing some, cooling off some, but yet literally, not in a position where the Federal Reserve is probably happy with this, because that puts more pressure on them, because they're still wanting to cut rates. And so I saw that Larry Fink came out just a moment ago saying that he sees another quarter cut before the end of the year. At the same time, the inflation metrics aren't really warranting the need for cuts. We need more. So we probably need some more hikes, but that'll completely stranglehold the economy, the global economy at that. So the narrative of needing to cut while being forced to pay higher interest on the debt is like, that's going to be a problem. So it's going to unwind, which means it's going to lead to more of a mass exodus out of what used to be safe haven assets. Okay. But here is more of his thoughts. Let me get this on the screen here. So on top of him, 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪 saying that treasuries are no longer safe haven assets because nations are deciding to reconsider the risk. Here we have him saying that soaring gold is driven by dollar diversification. And so this is another write-up that came out last week that, once again, he's a person who speaks on mainstream news every day, all day, and even gets featured in these headlines here. And so when he's telling us what has become the obvious based upon the price action we're seeing, it's kind of hard for the mainstream media to manipulate the narratives nowadays. So I remember over the last year or two, the mainstream media doing everything they could to try to contain the narratives by Jerome Powell coming out and what's his name, Janet Yellen, talking about soft landing and all those key buzzwords that made the markets respond favorably. So clearly, it's kind of hard to do that. But it says, Mohammed said that gold surging to a fresh record reflects how global financial institutions are deliberately diversifying away from, I would more so feel comfortable saying, Federal Reserve liabilities rather than U.S. dollar. The reason I say that is because, as I've mentioned throughout the last several years, all dollars are not created equal. And so it's unfortunate that the USD or US dollar in our symbol is associated with a Federal Reserve created entity or instrument. But once again, Coinage Act of 1792 clearly states the role of gold and silver as being considered the dollar or dollars. And of course, every Coinage Act from that point on further refined and defined gold in particular as a dollar. And so here we are now, 100 plus years after the fact. Majority of people don't know that. Anything that has paper with the word dollar on it or a digit on your screen is associated with the same dollar. But as we're witnessing, they're not all created equal, but they are running to other instruments known as gold. And so I would imagine if like this particular dollar here, which is the most affordable representation of a dollar, this silver eagle right here on the back, it says $1 as well. And so the question is, as all this unwinds, which dollar would you feel more comfortable holding as a wealth preservation medium? And so clearly, I would assume this one, because as of right now, this is probably going for maybe 40, maybe, $45, $42, depending on, where you buy it from. So once again, that version of a dollar is more trustworthy than this version of a dollar. So be careful which one you place the most value in. Use one to spend and use one to save. That's just my 2 cents on the matter. Okay, but keeping it moving. So here, let me share with you just in this article here, because I want to bore you guys, but I'm going to share with you 2. Let me see. He gave us some analysis here. And as always, I just try to thumb through these real quickly to give you something to chew on. But if you want to get more in depth, feel free to dive further for yourself. But he gives some key things here. I want to bring them up real quick. It says, I'll just thumb through this here. It says, when we try, where'd it go? Let me see. The secular move can be attributed to 2 fundamental drivers. This secular move he's referring to away from dollar. It says one is a slow diversification away from the dollar in the reserves of central banks around the world, he said. The other is a slow diversification away from the dollar payment system. It says while the move has been slow, the bad news is the momentum is building up, said Mohammed. And so moving away from the Federal Reserve liabilities and moving away from the Federal Reserve authorized payment mechanisms would be the second thing, which he attributes to a lot of this gold price action. And so those are just 1 or 2 or so of the many issues that is underway right now. And then you factor in a lot of the current political landscape we're in as well. And so between the Republican side and the Democratic side, I'm seeing more and more tweets about how people are positioning themselves ahead of time for a Trump victory. And what comes from that will ultimately be more currency creation as well. So whether Harris or Trump is in office, more currency will be created. And so no matter, it's just going to be a matter of whether it's faster or slower. Some will be, fashioned as growth. The other one will be more so fashioned as taxing the rich and making them pay their fair share narrative. So all in all, currency will be created, and the current amount of capital that is on the sidelines will have to make some tough choices. Where do they go? Do they go into equities, or do they go into a safe haven asset, or both? And clearly, stock market's going to probably shoot up until it doesn't, and gold and silver is going to shoot up because the world is going to run to that. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting times, man. So, we're in uncharted territories. I don't think we have witnessed anything like this on a global standpoint in human history, because there's been resets. There's been, currency devaluations. There's been, the changing of the monetary guards when it comes to reserve currencies, but not in a world where everything is centered around computers and high algorithm trading and all that stuff that goes beyond, one particular country. And so literally it's all interconnected. And we know the entire central bank model is predicated on the banking sector remaining strong and operational. And the losses they're taking, ultimately is going to be passed on to the depositors. And so that's just how things will play out. So there's a day of reckoning ahead, no matter who's in office. That's why I'm going to dial back from talking to politics, because I don't have confidence in either one. It's more so one will be slower than the other, but a day of reckoning is bound to happen. We're going to have a reset on somebody's watch, because neither presidential candidate is talking about the currency. They're not talking about the debt. They're talking about the little arguments in between, which makes a big difference. But when stuff hits the fan, people gonna care more about their pockets than they will, their next door neighbor, who may not be from this country, even though that's gonna be a problem as well. So anyway, keep it moving. And so that's just Muhammad sharing his thoughts. Then here's an interesting news story that came out in a French paper. And so this came out last week, and I had to translate it from English to from French to English. But this came out, it says record gold purchases are linked to a loss of confidence in the U.S.'s ability to influence the world order. And so this is as a result of the BRICS meeting. But it says Russia and China wish to threaten to strengthen the yuan, but cannot hope to finish off the dollar. Said, and once again, the translation from French to English, I'm sure it has a lot to do with the wording, but these countries can, however, take comfort from the rise in gold prices, a symptom of declining American economic leadership, analyzes journalist 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪. So this is what is this called? Le Monde in France. And so I take it as being a news source that is given a much different narrative than we would give here. But it goes on to talk about some history behind the dollar being where it is and everything like that. And it's a paid program. But once again, just saying that, loss of confidence. So what is that all centered around? Debt and the political charades in DC. Like the DC, it's a bipartisan piece. Please remember, it's a bipartisan effort of what we're witnessing right now. It takes two to tangle. It's just not a Joe's policy, because before Joe, Trump ran up the debt limit as well with the ceilings and all that stuff, the lack of debt ceiling. So believe me, it takes two to tangle, man. So just I hate people is so emotionally attached to it's concerning to me, but it is what it is. Anyway, keep it moving. So here's a couple other things worth bringing to your attention. It caught my attention. I mentioned this before, but here's just an actual visual aid that kind of highlights if the manipulation was to break and every single Federal Reserve note was to be accounted for. This is around the ballpark of what an ounce of gold would be. $360,000 if every contract was forced to turn it into a actual physical bar. So that's something worthwhile there. And so just look at that number there. And so for the average person, if you're tuning in, you're probably a part of the 1% that actually have prepared in advance by holding something of value of any size of gold. So imagine the average person who literally has everything they own on a platform somewhere in the form of a brokerage account with their, whoever they do business with, and their index fund from their employer in an Nvidia stock or Apple stock. Mind you, those will appreciate in price as the currency is counterfeited, as far as the monetary base being expanded. But in relative real purchasing power, they're losing big time. And I got an article talking about how 401ks, even though the numbers are going up, when you adjust it for inflation, the American population is losing big time. And that is the essence of financial repression. And that's a bipartisan thing. It takes Republicans and Democrats to pull this off. And so just think about this. And, my whole point of mentioning this was, you know, having access, to the fractional gold note. So having, one of these notes here for what, $5.65. If we saw that price there, this piece, this gold polymer note here would probably be something like, 80 to $80 or something like that, which is small, but for a $5 purchase, to be able to still purchase bread and everything else with that piece of paper is like, it will be a win-win in environments like this. God forbid we get there, but you get my point. So once again, having access to real tangible wealth of any increment will help you preserve and protect a lot longer than just being in liabilities. So just something else. But it doesn't stop there. Here is one for silver. 409 to 1. So if every futures contract, and so here the person put futures, options, swaps, forwards, derivatives, and ETFs. If all that was to be converted into fiat right now, we would be looking at around $13,780 for a 1 ounce. And that is a Mad Max type of world that I just, part of me, I don't think it would get there. Because between now and then, CBDCs will come out, and the draconian efforts by all governments to collaborate and work together to make sure people are forced to use those things. And they're going to chokehold and cut off any type of safe haven opportunities for people through taxation. They're not going to confiscate because most people don't have anything, but through taxation, to where they're going to rewrite the rules of the game like they always do to suit them and to make sure people don't profit off of this transition, will be my opinion. How it works out, I don't know. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But, I want to be realistic. I don't want people to think that, just because I got gold and silver, I'm protected, I'm good forever. No, they're going to rewrite the rules of the game. And that's why you shouldn't solely depend upon your financial situation. You have to have the natural and the spiritual all in one, because it's all going to come. You're going to need all of that when stuff really, 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 hits its peak, in my opinion. So I just talk about things from a practical standpoint, financially speaking. But, this is like, I'm just talking about currency insurance is what I'm ultimately talking about. Stuff you hope you never have to file a claim on, but you got it just in case. But in the meantime, I think what's most important and what interests me, I'm just ranting a little bit, but what interests me most is like literally, trying to be a solution to problems. Like that is a way to reassure that you'll always have access to cash flow, whatever kind it is, whether CBDC, metals, or crypto, whatever it is. Like, if you offer something of value, your services will be needed. And so, yeah, I think that's the best way to reassure yourself beyond anything else. But okay, enough rant. Keep it moving. On another note, just some headlines that made other news sources. So here we have the Jerusalem Post. And so the Jerusalem Post did a follow-up on that whole 408 ounces of paper to 1 silver, and the commentary that came from 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪. And this visual aid here highlights it even further. So this is a tweet that they used to write their article on. And so as it says here, did you know that there's 408 ounces of paper silver for every 1 ounce of physical? That could conceivably lead to a mad dash for scarce real silver, sending prices to astounding levels. But the point is, this visual aid here, just look at that pie. That little piece of sliver is a physical ounce, and all that blue is all the financialization of the silver market in its entirety. That's spooky, but that's what we're up against. Okay, keep it moving. Then here's another headline here that I think is worth mentioning now, but it's still early, and this has to do with the BRICS follow-up, possible step of a precious metals exchange and what this could mean. And so we're witnessing right now gold and silver basically, decouple from the fiat Ponzi manipulation efforts, of which they clearly have the power to maintain somewhat. And so I would imagine before this is even set up, because this is going to be a multi-year thing. This is probably like, down the line. This is not going to be something that's coming in the next couple of months. This is going to be maybe years from now, if it does. But I think what is more important is the mere threat of them, meaning the BRICS nations, looking to establish something that counters the Western dominant bullion banks is what is worth mentioning. Just because before we even get to them, if they even do this, we're going to be at prices that won't even matter because whatever prices they're going to end up eventually using and quoting will be done in a different currency or many currencies. And if it's going to be brick related, it's going to be every single current fiat currency that they have as a part of their interconnected systems. It'll be priced in all those currencies, relative and anchored by some type of formal weight or something like that, so that those currencies don't fluctuate against gold. So I think we'll have time before we get to this point. And so somebody asked me to comment on it, but I would say give us some time. But before we get to there, we're going to see, silver, 60, 70, $80 minimum. And then gold to be, 3,500 or something like that before we, that's probably, beginning of next year, but you get my drift. So I thought I would just mention that because somebody wanted me to comment on it. And so outside of that, China is imploding. China launches new lending tool before the year-end loan expiry. So this came out 2 days ago, and they're just going to they're going to print to keep things afloat. So it says some 2.9 trillion yuan in middle-term loans are due to mature between now and the end of this month, which will make it harder for banks to finance investments and revive flagging growth in the world's second largest economy. So if you have 2.9 trillion yuan coming due in the next 45 days, they're going to need 406 to address that. But that's not going to be enough. So I would say they're going to probably cut on the water spigot, similar to how the U.S. did in 2008. So clearly China's having their 2008 moment now. And it just so happens that they are not the leading world reserve currency, which allows it to stay somewhat contained. But their responses will also factor into the price of gold going up and silver going up as well. So they're in their emergency crisis now. The U.S. we're able to hold ours off a little bit. So, but then again, ours is coming as well because debt must be sustained or it implodes, and that's deflationary, and they can't have that because that helps us out as, the holders of a lot of this credit. And so they will respond with more stimulus as well at some point in the future. So this is another driving force, which will see gold and silver respond favorably to as well. So just a little something there. And then lastly, I say all this because the average person still thinks that the traditional advice that has been given will remain solid advice in the midst of a reset. Because I always say we're in a reset now. Just look at the price action. Look at the bond market. Those are conditions that show that there's instability and there's a lack of confidence. There's a lack of sound global collaboration right now because there's a scramble to dump this, to get this, and all that stuff like that. And what does that end up coming back to hurt? Who does it come back to hurt the most? Oh, let me share this with you. Here we have an article. Inflation cuts 2.5 trillion from retirement plans despite growth in retirement accounts. So I've talked a lot about retirement because I think that concept was introduced during the industrial age, and it went through a couple different iterations now. It went from pensions, which kind of came to an end at the beginning of the 70s. Then they introduced the 401k, and the 401k now is up for testing. And even Vanguard, I've mentioned this in a previous video a while back, Vanguard, the CEO and founder of Vanguard, said that the 401k and that retirement model was not designed to do what it has been positioned to do now, as far as being a reliable medium for people to withdraw from for the remainder of their lives, because they won't be able to put enough funds in it to do that. And so we've been lied to all along. But living in the Western world, living in the most developed country, because of having access to the reserve currency, has allowed us to not really pay these concerns any matter. But financial repression at its finest here is that even though people have intentionally, proactively decided to put aside more, when you factor in that the monetary base has been expanded exponentially, it erodes whatever real purchasing power you think you might have away. So literally, the more you save, the greater they print is the less that you lose. So that difference, like the government prints. So let me give you a demonstration. The government prints 4 or 5 trillion. You save an extra 4 or 5,000. Like that still makes it like, you'd even do nothing. In actuality, 4 or 5 trillion eats into that 3 or 4 to where now you're negative. You're negative 4 or 5. So you lost 8-ish in real purchasing power. And so this is something that should be concerning. So let me give you an example here that they give as to what I'm talking about. It says here, the report shares that Fox Business found that the average 401k plan grew by 11,000 from 21 to 24. But when adjusted for inflation, it represents a 12% or a 9.2% loss. So the average put in 11, but adjusted for inflation, they actually lost 12,000. And so it says nearly 30 trillion by the third quarter of this year is what it equates to total portfolio allocation. But after adjusting for inflation, the retirement plans are now worth roughly 27 trillion or 2.5 trillion in real losses. So literally the number can climb as high as you want it or they can report it as, but when it comes to actually being able to use those same digits to purchase goods at that particular time, you've lost out. And so lack of confidence, the world running to diversify, government chaos from the French paper and the instability in the government and all that other stuff. You have financial repression. You got we got a storm of things that are worth considering as to why things are not looking good for those who solely see the world through the lens of a Federal Reserve note focused world. So that's just a little something for those who might be new to the channel. You never know. But anyway, just sharing my 2 cents, sharing what I think is most important, the mass exodus and, the alarming collapse of fiat confidence being eroded and where it's going. Keeping your eye on a target, which happens to be sound money, just from a financial standpoint. Anyway, curious to hear what you guys think. If you found value, hit that thumbs up, drop me a comment, let me know your thoughts. I like to read the comments and I'll share if I can, or I use them for inspiration to do some research to bring some more videos to you. So anyway, be blessed, be safe. Shalom.